So now let's start going into what can confuse the players or confuse the dealers. The first thing that gets a little bit confusing. So we already went over the combinations of the dice. And again, I always picture a 7 right in between the 6 and 8. And there's 6 ways for it to come. And then I know just going out, just drop one. 5 ways, 4 ways, 3 ways, and then 2 ways for the 3 and 11, 1 way for the 1 and 12. That's how I pictured it when I first started. So the come out roll, to reiterate, 2, 3, and 12 lose, 7, 11 win. Once there's a point, the only thing that matters to the pass line is the point or a 7. Nothing else matters. Now, pass line bets get paid even money always. There is never, ever a situation where the pass line gets paid anything other than even money. Ever. What if they want to bet additional money? What if they want to bet more money? Can they? Yes. It's called odds. Odds are the best bet in the casino. That is something that is said all the time. Every craps table, every dealer will tell you this, every box will tell you this, and it's true. Because I challenge you to tell me another bet in the casino that does not have a house edge. Odds have 0 house edge. If a player wants to bet odds, they must have a pass line bet, and they will put the odds directly behind their bet. Now, whatever the table minimum is, that's what the odds have to be. Some people have this thing in their head that odds must match their pass line bet or be a certain multiple of their pass line bet. No, that's not true. Somebody can have a $200 pass line bet and $25 in odds. It's perfectly fine, as long as the table minimum is 25 or less. The odds must at least meet table minimum. So they put their odds behind their bet, and they can put any amount between table minimum and the table max for odds. And I'll do a very brief overview of that because it's going to depend upon where you go when you start dealing as far as what the odds are going to be. Most people are familiar with 3, 4, 5 odds. 3, 4, 5. And what that means is 3, 4, or 5 times. 3, 4, or 5 times. Now, there's some places off the strip that do 10 times, even 20 times. There's also a couple places that do 100 times. Now, why is it in terms of times and multiples? Because your odds, your maximum odds, is always based off of your flat bet on your pass line bet. Your pass line bet is called your flat bet because it's always paid even money. It's paid flat amount. So that's called the flat bet. And your odds, your maximum odds, are always based off your flat bet. So if you're somewhere that is 3, 4, 5 odds, 3, 4, 5 times, well, that means that on a 6 or an 8, your maximum odds is 5 times your pass line bet. It's your max. Your minimum is table minimum. So again, you can have $500 pass line bet and just do 25 in odds. That is okay, as long as 25 is the table minimum. But if you have, say, $25 pass line bet and you're on the 8 and you're at 3, 4, 5 odds, you cannot do 200 in odds because that would be 8 times. 8 times your flat bet, and you're at 3, 4, 5, so you can only do 5 times. If you were on the 9 and you had a $25 flat bet, you can do 4 times. You could do up to $100. If you were on the 4 and 10, it's 3 times, so you'd be able to do $75 off your $25 flat bet. Now, some places are a flat 10 times, 20 times, or 100 times, which means that it does not matter what the number is. Your maximum odds is going to be 10 times or 20 times your flat bet. So how do these pay? Well, this over a little bit. We'll assume a $15 minimum bet table. One thing for you guys real fast as well, when it comes to stacks of checks, ones the players put down, that's fine. They can do whatever they want. Anything that you are in control of, never more than 5 checks max of a color. So what that means is if I had a $30 bet that I was setting up, and we'll get to the place bets and stuff like that later on, but if I were setting up that bet and it was $30, this is not the proper way for me to do it because that is 6 red checks. No, not allowed. No more than 5 checks in any specific color. There are occasional times where somewhat more advanced dealers will make a small exception, but the policy, the procedure is 5 or less of any given color. Otherwise, you change it out. But you cannot control what the players do, and you don't want to touch their money. Don't touch their money unless you absolutely have to. There are times where you have to fix a bet. So, let's go into how these pay. Well, we get back to, I'm going to remove these. These were the examples for the 2, 3, 11, and 12 as far as combinations of the dice go. So for the rest of these, let's look at the 4 and 10. So, once there is a point, the only thing that matters to that pass line bet, and therefore the odds, is the point, or a 7. 7 they lose, they make their point, they win. How many ways are there for them to lose? 6 ways. It's always 6 ways to lose once there's a point on the pass line. Always 6 ways. How many ways are there for them to win? 3 ways. So you've got 6 ways to lose, 3 ways to win. Let's divide that by 2 to make it easier. Or divide that by 3, I'm sorry. Divide it by 3 to make it easier. That means that we get 2 ways to win, or 2 ways to lose, 1 way to win. 6 ways to lose, 3 ways to win, right? So what kind of odds is that? It's 2 to 1 odds. 2 to 1 odds. On the 4 and 10, odds pay 2 to 1. They pay double. So again, odds only bet in the casino that has no house edge. There's none. So that's why we make a focus to memorize how many combinations there are of the 36 combinations of the dice for every number. Because you don't need to know the odds if you know that. It helps, and eventually you're going to memorize the odds, and we're going to show you how. But you can always just go off the combinations of the dice. For instance, 5 and 9. How many ways are there to lose? We've covered that. 6 ways to lose. Always 6 ways to lose. How many ways are there to win? It's 4 ways for a 9 to roll, or 4 ways for a 5 to roll. So 4 to 6. I can divide that by 2. What do I get? 3 to 2. 3 to 2 odds. So therefore, every 2 that they bet wins 3. Every 2 they bet wins 3. For dealers that have come out of blackjack, it's easy. It pays blackjack.
Off script blackjack.
I'm going to get into that. 6 and 8. 6 and 8. 6 ways to lose, 5 ways to win. Therefore, every 5 pays them 6. Every 5 pays them 6. So the way I used to teach it to people is odds pay double, blackjack, cheap blackjack. That's how I used to teach it. Double, blackjack, cheap blackjack. Pays double their odds, pays 3 to 2, pays 6 to 5. Double, blackjack, cheap blackjack. That's how I used to explain it to people that were good at blackjack. It tends to escape students that, or doesn't really sink in deep to students that just finished, say, learning blackjack and went straight into the craps course. But that really sets in for people that have been dealing for a while and are coming to learn craps. Because they have a almost instinctive understanding of that 3 to 2 and that 6 to 5. And that makes it easier for them to pay it out. So now I'm going to get rid of these because, of course, we already know all the combinations of the dice, so we don't need this anymore. Now we're going to talk about how you pay odds. So as we know, we always pay the pass line bet from base dealer to stick. So I would always pay it this way. You notice we're starting with red. I do have one green one over there as an example. But notice we're starting with red. Every student wants to jump into black right away, or by the end of their course, or when they're messing around before or after the class, they want to jump into black, and because they think they look cool, I guess, when they can do black. But the thing is, the breaking casino, wherever you're going to go, the tier 1, tier 2 casinos, 99% of the bets are going to be green. Or going to be red, I'm sorry. They're going to be red. And then
Maybe some green.
Maybe 0.75% of the bets are going to have green. And then 0.25% are going to be higher than that, if that. So yes, you're going to end up dealing with black at some point. You're going to end up dealing with green at some point. But the massive majority of your time is going to be spent dealing with red. And that's what you need to be quick and smooth at. If you can't do the foundational, simple stuff smoothly and quickly, you're not going to be able to show off with your black because they're already going to think that you're a terrible dealer and get you off the table as fast as they can. I see a lot of dealers that go into a casino, they deal craps a couple of times, and then they notice that they're not getting a whole lot of craps time anymore. They're getting less and less and less and less and less. I guarantee you it comes down to these basic things, either those core skills that we covered or these basic payouts. So, if we're paying with red, if I look down around here, I notice that the first chunk of people I need to pay are all dealing with red. I do have a green over there, but the first chunk of people are all dealing with red. So what I am likely to do is I'm likely going to grab a double handful of red. We always pay odds first. Now, if we are paying one-handed, and sometimes we will, if I only have to size in once or something, you always use your outside hand, so I'm not visually blocking the bet from the box. There are some situations where it's okay to do it. In fact, you have to when we get to like the 6 and 8. So it is acceptable to pay that this way for the odds. The flat bet, however, is not acceptable to pay with this hand because we're only sizing in once. So I will pay with my outside hand. It is also acceptable to do it that way. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to come around. Now what you'll notice is that we always pay the odds first. That is procedure. You always pay the odds first. Now that I'm getting into over there, I could look at what they have in the rail and decide to only pay them red, or I pay them straight color for color. Because they have multiple colors, I need to break this down for the cameras. Now, when you get more advanced, you're just going to do maybe a small heel off or something along those lines. But the proper way is going to be to break it down just like that for the cameras. You don't break it down and then stack it back up. You break it down and you leave it there. So now,
That's true for all games.
I'm going to have the smallest check in my outside hand and the largest check in my inside hand. I could just pick two, absolutely, but let's say you've got multiple bets with the green, so you're gonna come out with a stack. Okay, so I've got the largest check in my inside hand, right, the one closest to the box. There's only going to be one exception to this, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. So I'm going to drop the largest check down. Now, since I'm paying this way, that means the payouts are on this side. On the other side of the table, they'd be on the other side because we're paying the other direction. Right? So I would drop the two green, and then I would size in. I absolutely hate seeing them drop the two red. Why would you do that when you can just size in? Then I'm going to size in here. We always pay odds first. So 4 and 10, they're double. So what about 5 and 9? So the 5 and 9 pays 3 to 2 on the odds. So if we get a winner, now here's the thing. I have 2 improper bets out there, and I did it on purpose. We're going to leave those out there because they are going to happen. And I'm going to show you some advanced ways. Oh, I picked up a flat. I'm going to show you some advanced ways to pay some of the more common ones next, but we're going to start with the most basic things. So over there, anytime you have change, the casino keeps the change. You never round up to the player. If we owe a player $22.95, and I'm not too sure how, it would take me a minute to figure out a bet that could pull that. I could pull that off with a bet in there, but if we owe a player $22.95, they're getting $22. We always, always, always keep the change. So I have $15 in odds over there. Right? Theoretically, I should be grabbing this way. But in reality, just like we'll do with the 6 and 8, and I'll show you guys in a minute, the red is actually going to be in my outside hand. Red is going to be in my outside hand. The reason for that is because red is what I'm going to continue to use over and over and over again. So the red is going to stay in my outside hand. 15 pays 22. What we hate to see is drop 4 and then drop the 2. Reality, Better is to size in and then pay it this way. Even better is size in that way. Drop 1, put the 2 on top, size in. That's your 22. Easy and quick to read. Easy and quick to read. Easy and quick to read for the box. Boom, paid, done. The next one, $25 in odds. That's going to pay $37.50, just like the other one paid $22.50. Now we're dealing with 3 colors. Dealing with 3 colors. There's a few different ways we could pay that, but the easiest way is to do it properly. Cut out $37, stack it up, and since this is going to the odds that we always pay first, this will go into my outside hand. I'll heel it off, and then I'll size in. I'll heel it off next to the bet, outside the pass line. Don't touch the line. That's a different type of payout that we will go into. Now, if I were in this situation, after I paid that, I would jump straight over to this bet because I already have the red. But technically, it should be my outside hand. It should be my outside hand, or both hands, to pay it. Right? So I could certainly do it this way. Now, I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to pay this bet. Back in the day, only one would have been considered proper, which is size in and drop 2. 20 pays 30. Going to size in and drop 2, then size in here. Now, what has become very, very common nowadays, to the point where it drives some old school boxes nuts, but for the most part, it's just so common it's almost become procedure, is 20 pays 30. So drop 3, size in. I don't see too much of a difference between the 2. One, you're sizing in and then dropping. One, you're dropping then sizing in. It's 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other. I don't have a problem with that either way. Now over here, 30 pays 45. Now I could do it all in red, drop 4, size in, then drop 1. Or I can just bring out a green, drop the 4, size in. All right, that's a little bit cramped in there, so it's not as neat as we normally would do it, but you don't have a whole lot of choice when you're in a situation like this, especially because the player probably has their hand in the way right there, the one picking up that particular bet. So that would be how you would pay the 5 and 9. Now, on one of these, I am about to probably throwing me off a little bit. Just like we did with that one.
Yeah, that one gets you. Because my brain is screaming, why is this small denomination in front of a bigger one? You know.
Just wait. So, on the 6 and 8, every 5 pays 6. Every 5 pays 6. So, since it's mostly red out there, I'm going to grab red on my outside, white on my inside. Now, this is a stylistic thing. It's almost 50-50 dealers that do this. Red in their outside, white in their inside. The other 50% just goes straight out from the stack, so which makes a ton of sense. Now, I used to think it was an East Coast, West Coast thing. I was taught by an East Coast instructor, but I know an East Coast dealer that does it the other way. So 6 to 1, half dozen the other. No real right or wrong answer on this one. So every 5 pays 6. Every red gets a red and a white. So I'm just going to come around, size in, and there we go. Now here, I could always grab a green and pay it that way. Or I could size in with the red and the white. Either one. Come over here. Come over here. And the beauty of this, and see here, I would stop. I would stop and I would bring it back. You don't pay part of the bet and then go back to your stacks. You see it a lot, but it's lazy. Now, here, once we break it down, 30 pays 36, right? 30 pays 36. So, that's how I would pay it. Now, you can cut out $36 this way. But the most common way I see it, drop 25, put your 1 on top, size in. There's your $36. That is your 36 bucks. Super, super, super common, super, super, super easy to read. In fact, I'm going to show you a trick about that when I cover the advanced ways of paying next. So here's where we would have students set up bets just like we did before where you just had a pass line bet and you rolled it out, so you got used to 2s, 3s, 11s, 12s, points, winners, 7 outs, all of that stuff. Now we would have them do the same thing, only we would have them put odds behind after there was a point set and have them spend about an hour just rolling the dice, pay proper, take, whatever it may be. So now I'm going to show you guys a couple of common payouts and a few tricks on calculating out some of the payouts quickly. Then I'm going to show you one final thing with paying out on the pass line before we move on to a very complicated thing. So we'll finish up this little block as far as the pass line goes. So on the 5 and 9, you'll see players say on a $15 minimum bet table, right? So they've got their $15 flat bet, they put down 15 odds. Once you've been dealing for a little while, you're going to say, hey, drop $1 on top of there. Or say, hey, drop another chip on top of there. Either one. Because on the 5 and 9, every 2 pays 3. So they want to be in sets of 2. They want to be even in order to pay proper. So they drop $1 on top. So now they have 16 in odds. Well, if that wins, it pays 24. Generally speaking, especially when you start out, you're always going to pay color for color. You're not going to go up a color, generally speaking. So here, instead of giving them a green chip, now it pays 24. What I'll do is I'm going to size in, drop 1, and then take the white. Okay, size in, drop 1, then take the white. Do not drop 5, take the white. Okay, do not. There's nothing wrong with it inherently, except it's going to drive the boxes nuts, because if we see this, our eyes just scanned right on and moved on. No thought to it whatsoever. We know it was proper. We know it was proper. Now, except in certain situations, this right here is one that you're not likely to see very often. $12 in odds. Not likely to see very often. But it's a pretty easy one because you can size in and take both whites. 12 pays 18, right? So you give them 20 for 2. Now, I'm trying to decide if I want to show you guys that one yet or not. I don't think I will. We're going to save that for a little bit later. Now, one thing, when it comes to taking money from the players, procedure-wise, you're not allowed to touch the flat bets, okay? Never touch a flat bet. Flat bets need to stay the way they are. But you can manipulate the odds. You can manipulate the odds. So, 20 pays 30. What if the player has about this much red up in their rail? Do we want to keep giving them more and more and more and more red so that eventually we have to do a fill, and then when they color up we've got way too much red? No, of course not. You want to deal to their rail. Now, when you're an absolute bare minimum break-in, they won't allow you to deal to the rail. But within a month or two, if you're still dealing craps, they're probably going to want you to start dealing to the rail. So again, I'm not supposed to take anything off the pass line bet. So 20 pays 30, 50 for 20. And size in.
I like that.
Okay. Now another thing that you could do, 50 for 20 and size in. All I have to do is bring out the 2 greens. I don't have to bring out the red because I'm taking the red. So I can manipulate it that way if necessary. If necessary. There's other ways I could have done it.
Both of those moves.
There's another way I could have done it that I'm going to show you guys in just a moment. Now, let's look at the 6 and 8. 6 and 8. So the first thing to cover is, what if they stack a bunch of white on top of there because. Well, when I go to break it down, I look at it and I notice that there's 5 of them, okay? It's 5 whites. So I might just pick it up, replace it with a red, and then size in. And drop the checks everywhere. Yeah. Just pick them up, replace it, and then size in. Using the stack that I just picked up. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Now sometimes they have an improper bet out. Well, just going to have to deal with it. Just going to have to deal with it and figure it out. The easiest way to figure it out, add a 0. They've got $3 there. What would $30 pay? Well, $30 would pay 36. So 3 pays 360. Don't need to worry about the 60 cents. 3 pays 3. It pays even money. On the 6 and 8. On the 6 and 8. When you get it up to the other numbers, then, I mean, on the 5 and 9, you know, if it's improper, it pays $1. It's just It's either going to be even or it's not.
Right.
And the 4 and 10, you can't be improper. It pays double. It's impossible to be improper. But with the 6 and 8, there's a few other tricks that can come into play. And I am going to do them first. And then explain them out. So I'm going to do them first and then explain them. Okay, so it's a brief overview for you guys because I know you can't see it from your angle. Forget about the flat bets right now. We're on the 8, right? 6 or 8. The odds. For odds, I've got $35 in odds. I've got $60 in odds. I've got $80 in odds, so clearly they're on a 10 times place. And I've got $30 in odds. Okay? So you can sit there and figure out, divide by 5, multiply by 6, or you can pay it the way I would pay it. Just like that. Like that. That and like that. I didn't do the math on any one of those payouts, not a single one of them. I just went out and paid them. And the reason for that is I paid it by color. Here's the thing. I have a really bad sizing right there too.
Shame.
Yeah. Here's the thing. 5 pays 6, right? So every green gets paid a green and a red. Every red gets paid a red and a white, right? So that means that for their odds, if they have a red stacked on top of a green, all I have to do is stack a white on top of a green and then size in with red. So when I looked around those odds, I saw 2 reds on top of a green, so I stacked 2 whites on top of a green. I didn't need to think about anything else because I'm just sizing in. I saw 2 reds on top of 2 greens, so I stacked 2 whites on top of 2 greens. And then sized in with the red. 1 red on top of 3 greens, 1 white on top of 3 greens, and then size in with a red. 1 red on a green, so 1 white on a green, size in with red. Don't have to think about it. Don't have to do the math. And this is an acceptable trick. At a break-in casino, you may occasionally run into a box that is, I hate to put it this way, but too weak for that. But in general, this is an acceptable way to pay. Now, let's go over the final little bit of trickiness with past 9 payouts. The last thing that you can do. Now, this thing should be allowed to every dealer all the time. However, a lot of places, break-in places, will not allow their dealers to do this until they've been dealing for a little while.
Because they feel they can't, or they don't want them to get too big for their britches?
It's a trust thing for the most part. And in some cases, it's just a stubbornness thing. I worked at a place that did not allow dealers to do this until they were full-time. So, but it was a break-in. It was a break-in house, and the best dealers never went full-time because they were all aiming for tier 3, tier 4 casinos. So the ones that accepted full-time were actually the weakest, and so they were allowed to do things that the better dealers were not allowed to do. In theory, once they started to trust us, we could do a little bit more. But this is something. This is called totaling. Right? Again, you can manipulate the back, you can't manipulate the front. I should probably have the reds in here just for the heck of it. So let's look at the 10, because we pay out in double. Let's look at the 10. So we've got $40 in odds back, or $45 in odds back there, which pays 90 bucks. And then we've got a $15 flat bet. $15 flat bet. So this could be 3, 4, 5 odds actually. $15 flat bet, and $45 in odds. So it pays $90 in the back, so we could certainly go 90 and then size in with the reds. We can do that, there's nothing wrong with that, totally proper. But what if they've got just a butt ton of red? Well, let's see, 90 and 15 totals out to 105. So I could cut out 105. Now, you never reach for blacks, ever. So you don't pay with black until they've handed it to you. Right? But I could also do this with green. Either one. It's called totaling. When you total, same as before, you heel off the payouts, but you're directly on the line. Directly on the line in between the two bets. When you total, again, heeled off, all payouts are always heeled off, you're directly on the line between the two bets. Let's look at, say, a 5 and 9. 5 and 9. Over here, we've got 50 in odds, $25 flat bet. So 50 pays 75 in the back, plus 25 is $100. Now I can't heel this off, but I'm going to put it directly on the line if I pay it with black. If I paid it with green, I would heel it off. 20 pays 30, plus 15 is 45, right? 30 plus 15 is 45, but they've got a ton of red, so I'm going to cut out $50 for one red. Again, I'm not manipulating the front, I'm only manipulating the back, the odds. And I totaled it, so I dropped it right here. Now, the biggest thing, explain it to your players. Talk it out to your players. So many dealers want to do moves like this because they think they look cool and they think they look professional and they think they look super smart. And then the player starts asking, hey, what's that pay? What'd you do? What, huh? Versus, I'm paying everybody and I'm getting to the next player, right? Because the situation like this with all the different colors, I might come back and forth to my stacks. I could, try and pick the whole line and get it all set up in my hand, but honestly, most of us think that's kind of silly. So I'm probably coming back and forth quite a bit. So as I'm finishing that payout, I'm glancing at that one. I start talking to that player right away. And I tell him, 20 pays 30 plus 15 is 45. I'm giving you 50 for 5. Talk it out. You could talk it out super fast. There's no need to you're not taking any more time for yourself. I'm just saying, hey, 20 pays 30 plus 15, 45. I'm giving you 50 for 5. And then I move on to the next player. But talk it out. Explain it out to your players. Explain it out to your players. Here's another one. 30 pays 45 plus 10. Oh, actually, that one doesn't work. What was I going for on that? Oh, this is actually a fairly common one. 30 pays 45 plus 15 is 60. And I would talk it out. 30 pays 45 plus 15 gives you $60. And then move on. You don't have to talk slow, just explain it out to them so that they understand, especially when you take money from them. Especially when you take money from them. I know dealers that like to do it just to be jerks, basically. Here's an example of one. And this is completely improper. When you're really advanced, you might be able, you'll probably be allowed to do this when you're tier 3, tier 4 casino, but this is definitely improper. I can do this if I wanted to, if it came up. But 4 and 10. 10 in odds, $10 flat bet, right? 10 in odds, $10 flat bet. 10 pays 20, plus 10 is 30, right? I know dealers that'll do this. And they won't say a word. The reason they're doing it is just kind of mess with the player. We should not manipulate the pass line bets. Sometimes we will, but we should not. But you can total, and if you total, you leave it directly on the pass line. Run some drills, guys. Practice this stuff over and over and over again, because we're about to get into really confusing territory.